Our lives are a collection of journeys, some wonderful, some challenging, and some difficult. Difficult journeys can begin with a phone call, or a knock on the door, or someone walking down a long corridor, unexpected, uninvited, and unwanted, where everything changes. Someone, or perhaps something, has gone and will never return. That moment is the beginning of a journey that is not just about sadness, although it can be very sad, not just about desperation, although it can feel desperate, not just about pain, although it can be very painful. This journey is complex. It's about all those unpleasant and uncomfortable feelings and more. But it is also about finding strengths within family and friends and yourself. It is a journey that is described by two simple words: loss and grief.
Well, hello and welcome again to the Science of Psychotherapy. Thanks for dropping in and having a look at this new documentary episode that we have done on loss and grief. Richard, this is probably one of the best ones we've done so far, I think.
It's good. There's a lot of feeling, but of course, Matt, it's because it touches us all. But I wrote, I think I wrote some fairly nice words for the opening. But the visual images and the music that you've selected really are wonderful. But we're not here to paint ourselves in a good picture. We're here to encourage people to have a look at this fascinating documentary where we go through. We talk to some great people. We have some great stories as we go along.
Absolutely. So before we play a few of the clips, this is a course for the Science of Psychotherapy premium membership. There will be links in the notes below. So if you are interested in gaining some CEU points by watching the documentary, watching the extended interviews, then click on the link, become a member if you're not already a member. And I'm sure that you will not only thoroughly enjoy the production, but also get a lot of valuable information as a clinician from it.
Oh yeah, and the extended clips are fascinating. You can imagine we've got a 50-minute documentary, but that was out of several hours of material. So it's a real learning experience, and the CEU points there. And we do go through. Now, of course, we can't show everything, but it's important to have in any work that we do a sort of a foundational definition. And I think we've put a pretty functional, clear definition down. Can we have a look at that?
Let's have a look.
Grief is the emotional response to loss that can include feelings of sadness, anger, guilt, and despair. Grief is natural, but the intensity and duration of grief can vary greatly from person to person. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. The grieving process can involve physical symptoms such as fatigue and changes in appetite, and it is normal to seek support from friends and family. Many people find that talking to a therapist or counsellor can be helpful in coping with their grief. And what was interesting, Matt, as I was sort of editing and pulling things around, it just seemed that the most important thing that everybody was talking about, well, actually, we've just done one clip. Can we do another one?
Absolutely. And you'll see in this clip, it features Judith Murray. She was one of my professors when I was studying, and she has been teaching loss and grief for many, many years at university. And she's just got some really profound things to say.
Our special guests and others will share their journey of grief and loss, their experiences and how they developed their personal and professional lives as therapists, nurses, writers, and teachers. We begin with the telling of stories.
There's respect for the person, respect for the experience, respect for the story. You must always hear the story of grief, because we know the way that grief works in the brain is that it's not really good with language because so much of it happens within the limbic system. It's experienced in the limbic system, and that doesn't have good words. But story is always the way that allows us to put words on things. So it's a matter of really respecting the story, respecting the person, respecting the process.
I really believe that if we have a client that comes in with a grief and loss issue, we should allow a little bit of extra time so we don't cut them down when they take a while to warm up, to build that therapeutic alliance, to trust you enough with their story. I will not tell a personal story to people that I don't believe are really listening.
The first thing I would say to anyone who's working as a therapist, I talk about 3 words: respect, understanding, and enablement. And I will never back away from respect being the most important aspect of this work.
Richard, I really respect Karen Ferry being able to come on to this show and give her story. For those that get to watch the whole video, it's such a profoundly impacting story that Karen has. And so what she brings for therapists is so very important to listen to. And that, you know, she's talking about respect there. You know, that is just so important, giving people time to listen, respect where they're at in their space. So a big thank you to Karen for being involved in this.
And we've actually been blessed, because I know you asked Karen as one of your good friends to bring her story, and I asked my good friend Catherine Rossi, because we of course lost Ernie a couple of years ago, so she comes on, tells her stories, and we found and talked to the wonderful Judith Murray, who also has extraordinary tale of her own. But we brought in, and I like that we brought in Michael Colby, who is a writer and brings a philosophical perspective to this, because I think it is something that deals with our heart and our head, and so that gives us a balance in the presentation that I think is quite delightful. And of course, on top of that, this is something that also operates technically within us. We can break it down into elements. So we don't want to harp on it too much, but we bring in some neuroscience, and we bring in some of the endocrinology and the pain mechanisms, and that's really helpful to give you a background there.
I think it's great that there's these different layers that we're looking at. There's the philosophical, there's the neurobiological, and then and Catherine, you know, brings in, you know, the concept of the cycles.
Yeah, so this is a sort of an abstract concept of human functioning, and so well, let's show a little bit of the 4-stage cycles. They are just so important in our understanding of therapeutic processes.
There are patterns that are so tried and true. And these are the 4 stages of the creative cycle. And they're so tried and true, I call them truth. And stage 1 is so simple. It's, where are you headed? What is your question? What is on your mind? What's the problem? What's the curiosity? And stage 2 is, you're looking at the ups and downs and ins and outs of what all of that means on different levels of consciousness, not just the linear one, and where you're stuck. And stage 3 is the, oh my God, there's possibilities. I could do this maybe, or I feel different. And stage 4 is how you're going to actually apply it in your life. So you take these ideas and you just simply wonder how you're going to apply it in your life.
We don't take up too much time, but here's something that was interesting. We tried to find some interesting things. And of course, because grief affects the whole body, not only emotionally, but literally physically. So here's a really fascinating thing that I learned about as we were doing the research. The pain of grief can feel like a broken heart. The stress and anguish of grief can literally affect the structural shape of the heart. Takotsubo syndrome is where the left ventricle of the heart weakens and enlarges to a shape similar to a Japanese octopus trap, a tsakatsubo. Also known as stress cardiomyopathy, the symptoms can include chest pains, shortness of breath, and other heart problems. With care and professional attention, the heart can return to normal in as little as a few days, but can take a few months.
Yeah, isn't that so fascinating? I actually didn't know about that, the shape of the heart, until you brought it to light there. And so, yes, so we're covering physiology, as well as, like we said earlier, philosophy. And Michael had some interesting things to say about the philosophical aspect of loss and grief.
Again, grief is a tool to enable us to adapt to a world where, someone who mattered to us is now absent, and I think we should think of grieving as our primary, psychic resource for figuring out how to, continue forward in the world. Definitely, I want to present grief as an opportunity to create something good, against, again, a background of one of the more distressing features of human life, which is, we are mortals living with other mortals, and sometimes we just have to confront that fact.
Yeah, I think you will find Michael's contribution really fascinating, because when it does come to loss and grief, we are dealing, we all become a little philosophical, I think. We're dealing on that plane as therapists as well. So,
Yeah, I find him grounding, but centering as well,
Right,
because we've been pulled around in a lot of places, but also our incredible women. Certainly they're sharing what's going on in their hearts, but also what's in their heads. And there's some fabulous segments. Judith Murray talks about the nature of questioning and the 10 questions that she developed. Karen Ferry is talking about language changes and the way you need to adjust the way you speak about things because of the changes. And Catherine, she's just so pleased. Catherine Rossi is so pleased about this particular aspect that she calls the 8 dimensions that we need to work through in order to take us through this journey. But there's something, Matt. We'll let people watch those because there's a lot they have to say. But a picture paints 1,000 words, and a metaphor paints 1,000 more. But Judith Murray came sort of spontaneously up with this incredible thing.
Yes, she did. She did. She has this great metaphor, which represents the very visceral aspect of traveling through loss and grief. Let's just play that little bit of the clip.
If you think about like the analogy of a river, I like to think about it as, one of those white water rivers to start with, in a way. And in those early days, it's like this horrendous white water rafting, and it's just hanging on for dear life, and it doesn't make sense, and you think it will never end, and every now and then you'll hit a soft spot, that might be within the support of someone else, just before you go down again, so that white water rafting. And then as the river becomes to age a bit more, you get a lot more where you'll get pickups of the current. And the problem is, again, it might be that that current might be taking you well down, or it might actually be trying to pull you off to the other side. And we sometimes will fight with that, we'll fight against it, and we find ourselves with high anxiety and trying to be in control. And sometimes it's a bit like a rip, and you actually let go and go with the current. We don't actually stop the river. We don't actually create the river. What we do is, it's really helpful if you can throw someone a life jacket in the white water. Or you can provide if they lose their oars, our job is really just to try and get some oars across to them, or to throw them a rope, or whatever it is.
So I'm sure that everyone would be able to relate to the white water rafting metaphor when you're going through, especially the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, it really again, grounding and centering. Which we do. We take you on the journey, then bring you back, but give you that centering. And I think we should leave it for people to see for themselves, because they have to appreciate it. But something happened quite unexpectedly, and Catherine grabbed onto it, and it was something that was said quite publicly, and she just changed it, and she just adjusted it, and it will give you a hint. she reframes it all in the context of love.
Mm.
And maybe that
Yeah.
is what makes this whole special, this whole documentary so special, is that it has more love from us, because it really is about love. Grief and loss is an expression of how much we love.
Absolutely. Look, this is such a special episode for us, and we really do hope that you will take advantage of it, jump on, become a member if you're not a member already. And once again, the link is there in the notes here for this video, and we'd love your feedback as well. So I hope you enjoy it.